The Battle of Gettysburg in July of 1863 was a turning point in the Civil War and a hard-won victory for the Union Army. Confederate forces under General Robert E. Lee surrendered 2 years later on April 9, 1865, at the Appomattox Courthouse in Appomattox, Virginia. For the Michigan soldiers, it was time to return to the lives and families they had left behind. As the flags had been given to the regiments by the state of Michigan itself, it was now appropriate for the regiments to return the flags to the state.
What happened, of course, was that the governor at the time asked that all the regiments still possessing their regimental battle flags return them to the state. And to do this, they devised a tremendous ceremony so that they could both receive the flags and honor the regiments themselves. They chose as the day for their ceremony, of course, July 4th, 1866, the first real July 4th after the end of the Civil War. And it would be a vast celebration, and it would take place in Detroit because, of course, that was the biggest city in the state and where many of the troops had been mustered in and left for the field of battle. And so, on July 4th, 1866, 70,000 people crammed the streets of Detroit to watch as the remnants of all of the Michigan regiments marched for the very last time behind their battle flags. They proceeded to the Campus Martius in the center of town, a huge plaza where a reviewing stand had been set up, and Governor Crapo, one at a time, received the regiments and from them received their battle flags, oftentimes proffered forward by their color bearer, sometimes missing an arm, sometimes missing a leg, in tattered uniforms. The regiment stood just shadows of what they had been when they had marched away with so much glory only a few years before. And the flags themselves, of course, once bright, brilliant, glorious things, were now limp and tattered and shot full of holes and covered literally with blood and smoke. They were, as the men said themselves, mute testimony to everything the regiment had been through. And of course, the more tattered those flags, the prouder they were of them.
Governor Henry H. Crapo from his reception speech.
I receive, in behalf of the people of Michigan, these honorable memorials of your valor and the nation's glory. And on their part, I once more thank you for the noble services you have rendered in defending and preserving the life of the nation at the hazard of your own and at the sacrifice of so many of your comrades. They are your flags and ours. Let us then tenderly deposit them as sacred relics in the archives of our state, there to stand forever her proudest possession, a revered incentive to liberty and patriotism, a constant rebuke and terror to oppression and treason. Governor Henry H. Crapo, July 4th, 1866.
It was now important for the state to find the appropriate place to house the flags. It had to be a place of honor where the public and members of the state government could see them and remember what they stood for. As General O.B. Wilcox had said when he presented the flags to Governor Crapo on July 4th, 1866, let a monument be erected for them, at once worthy of their deeds and worthy of the state.
But what to do with them? What to do with them? We had 123 of them at the time. How would they be preserved? Where would they be preserved? The most logical place to put them would be, of course, in the state capitol. But the problem with the state capitol was that it was a wooden affair, tiny and crowded. If it were to catch on fire and burn, which was not at all unlikely, fire being the most terrible threat that buildings had in Michigan in these years, and for many years to come, for that matter. In a state that built with wood and heated with wood, the fate of many buildings was pretty much foretold. If they were to burn, so would the flags. And so a movement began, a place to store and to display the flags, where they would stand as these lasting monuments and be preserved forever began. Something more suitable, something fireproof, something grander, something more beautiful, something that could essentially function as a shrine. And because of that reason, and other reasons, of course, that wasn't the only one, a movement began in the years just after the Civil War to build a brand new state capitol. So, January 1st, 1879, Michigan had something to celebrate. a gala celebration in Lansing as we dedicated and opened our brand new Michigan State Capitol, the very building that today we celebrate as well. And on that day, the Adjutant General of Michigan, a man named John Robertson, recorded that of the thousands of people who came to see the new building, many of them, if not most, made their way to the Military Museum on the first floor of the Capitol, made their way to the huge floor-to-ceiling cases designed by the architect Elijah Myers, where they could then press their faces to the glass and see their battle flags. Tears streaming down their faces, they said that they stood as lasting mementos of friends lost and a country saved.